It's Wednesday night and youth pastor Stevens Oduje is running the weekly junior high youth group at Rexdale Alliance in the West End of Toronto. As one of millions of youth pastors in North America, Oduje gets a lot of questions thrown at him from the youth he mentors. But the quest to live an authentic Christian life, a holy life, is forefront in many young people's minds.
I guess it would have to do with for them understanding who they are in Christ, and that God has called us to be separate and devoted to Himself.
But he says it's not as easy as it sounds. In a world geared to getting young people's attention through television, social media, advertising, and anything else, as well as issues of peer pressure and simply fitting in, Odije realizes that even when his students come in each week, he is vying for their attention as well.
Peer pressure is huge, obviously. You know how? Because a lot of them they want to fit in, they don't want to stand out as a sore thumb in their circle of influence. I mean, one of our main missions vision here in our youth group is rebelling towards risky obedience. Yeah. We want our students to rebel against anything that would cause them to fall away from God and to actively pursue Christ.
So what does that look like? And how do parents teach this to their children? New Testament scholar Dr. Craig Evans says the answer can be found here.
God, through Moses and through the prophets, remind Israel that they are to be holy as God is holy. The Israelite parents are to teach their sons and daughters the commandments of the Lord and so forth, the fear of the Lord, the respect of the Lord. And I think that's very much in force in the New Testament. It's more of a presupposition. But there you have the example of Jesus and the way he blesses children. You have the Paul in his letters telling parents to discipline their children properly, not to exasperate them, not to wear them down, but to encourage them and lead by example.
Author and pastor David Soller goes even further by stating that parents, mentors, and youth pastors also have a duty to be honest with their kids, letting them know the journey won't be easy.
And that's actually why a lot of kids say, I obviously can't do this. I've messed up so many times that the last thing I am is holy. And so I want to give that hopeful message to people that, you know what, Christ is bigger than all our failures, and it's through Him that, when we think about being set apart and holiness, it's not on how good I'm doing. Because thank goodness, because if it depended on how good all of us were doing, we're all in trouble.
For Angela, JC, Rufus, Lily, and Sam, the challenges are real and a daily battle between standing for what they believe and dealing with their day-to-day realities.
Oh, for sure. Just in the interactions I have with my groups of friends there, is if they want to go out and get to a party and get smashed, be like, where's my conviction there? How could I live out my witness role with Christ in that situation? Or if they're talking in a conversation and dropping swear words left, right, and center, what do I say in response? Is it okay to laugh at that joke? Is it okay to affirm that? That's a lot of challenges.
Youth expert Sid Coop says it's important to talk to your children in an age-appropriate way about those societal challenges instead of choosing to keep them in a censored bubble.
The best way to do it is appropriate isolation at certain ages, but better is teaching discernment and teaching him as God's design so he can make good decisions as he goes.
Coop should know, a father of two, he recalls a teaching moment he had with his own 8-year-old son.
I was driving home from work just listening to the radio, and there was a song by Akon and Flo Rida came on called Who Dat Girl, and it's very sexual in nature, actually quite pornographic. And so I walked into my house, and my son was 8 at the time, and I just said to him, hey Peyton, buddy, have you ever heard the song Who Dat Girl? And he goes, yep. I was like, oh. And so from one of his friends at school, had his iPod, had the song, and he listened to it. I said, buddy, do you know what that song's about? Nope. Good. Well, let's do some teaching, actually. And so what we did is we actually sat down, we walked through the lyrics, and I just said, buddy, what do you think Jesus thinks about this? Process why Jesus didn't think that was great. I said, what do you think Jesus thinks is really good about our sex and sexuality? So even at this age, right, because these are the messages that are coming, we're trying to create a good theological lens for him and understand that it is what God's plan is really, really good.
I shared Sid's story with the group at Rexdale Alliance.
Wow.
So interested to hear their response.
100% effective.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
Like Moves Like Jagger is such a catchy tune, but like when you break it down, you realize it's about like being drunk and kissing a girl, and then you think about it, it's just like, really? Like I'm singing along with that, so it's just like, yeah, I think it's effective.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you want to like stimulate and instill in your children like a desire to know God more, you need to give them the opportunity to discover those things so that when they go back to school and they say, that's a bad song, and their kids say why, they have an answer.
But what happens when the battle is not against pop culture, but your child's school? For almost 50 years, the Evangelical Fellowship of Canada has been a voice for Christians nationwide, including parents. Most recently, Bruce Clemenger and his team have advocated for parents in opposition to same-sex union education, and even more recently, a Supreme Court case where parents in Quebec wanted to exercise their parental right to opt their grade 1 to grade 11 children out of an ethics and religion and culture program. According to Clemenger, a parent's role is clear.
Well, first, as Christians, we understand that we, with all people, according to the UN Declaration of Human Rights, and it's been acknowledged by our courts in Canada, that it's the parents who have the primary and the basic responsibility for educating their children. So we hand over that responsibility, or portions of it, to the local school.
But Clemenger points out that each case is unique, and while the intentions by the individual provinces and boards of education are usually good, he says it depends on the age of the students and the teacher's way of interpreting the material.
Are there sensitive issues that are coming up that the teacher is going to be dealing with? And just ask the teacher, how do you plan to unfold this? Is it age appropriate?
But ultimately, he agrees with Sid Coop and others who say we can't continue to shelter our children, but instead prepare them to defend what they believe.
The education environment may actually be a more structured environment within which we can teach our children how to be discerning. And maybe in some situations we shouldn't be too quick to pull our children out, but we should be equipping them so that when they're in that environment, they're able to make that discernment themselves.
This group of parents agree.
We try and teach them, I think, to be authentically who they are and not to be something fake. So I believe that they're made in the image of God, and that image will shine through, whether they're twittering or on Facebook or talking on the phone.
And for some in this group, that also means sending their children to public schools so that they can be missional in their mindset and live out the biblical command to be holy.
We want them to be salt and light where they're at. I remember even when we were having Bible studies with our kids, and when kids were young, our daughter said, Mom and Dad, what's a prostitute? And it was a great opportunity. Instead of, we could have kind of just swept that under the carpet. It was a great discussion to be able to tell them what the real world was all about. And it's a high value for us to let them know what the world is so that they're prepared and that they're not caught off guard.
According to Professor John Stackhouse, holiness is educating your child to speak about their faith just like any other topic.
It's going to come up, and then just talk about it in an intelligent, respectful way. We teach our kids how to do that. They not only will talk about religion better, they will show other Canadians how to talk about everything better. And that's a pretty good thing to be able to do.
And for this group of kids at Rexdale Alliance, they have a message for adults as well.
I would say the tactic that what your parents did for you won't work for us. Exactly what that guy did with his 10-year-old son was he took a modern song that was on the radio and broke it down. Like, that's exactly what I would say. It's like different stuff is changing, like figure out what that is and like adapt to it. And then adapt to it, because like the slangs are different, the terminology is different. So like the stumbling blocks are different. So like, how could you teach us to overcome that now?
Living out their walk in Christ and just showing their kids that it's something real and it's not just a show, and taking your kids along and just sharing what God's doing in your life. Whether you have like a 6-year-old, a 15-year-old, or a 10-year-old, just communicate it to them in an effective way, and just pray for your kids. Pray for your kids. Prayer is such a weapon.
In Toronto, Ontario, Magdalene John, 100 Huntley Street.